Hi there, I'm Kathleen Jasper, and today is part 2 of how to write a dissertation. And in this part, we are going to focus on the literature review, or section 2 of the dissertation. So let's get started. All right, so this is part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, I will link it up here. Be sure to watch that video first. But in this video, we're going to focus specifically on chapter 2, which is the literature review. Now, you'll recall from part 1 of this series that we went through the overall structure of the dissertation, the difference between a qualitative research report and a quantitative dissertation. And so you're going to want to review those. And in this part, I'm going to talk specifically about chapter 2 and how to structure your literature review. So let's hop over to my dissertation here, and you can see that in chapter 2, we have a review of the literature. Now you're actually going to start on chapter 2. You're not going to start in chapter 1. You know that I always write things backwards and from the middle out, but it's really important that you review the literature first before making all kinds of decisions regarding research questions and things like that. Now, some people will say, you have to have your research questions first. I don't believe that. I think you should read as much literature on your topic or related to your topic as possible before you generate some questions. Now, if you are not in the dissertation phase yet, you can still start collecting articles that are based on your topic and throwing them into a folder and incrementally reading them so that it makes this process a little bit easier. So as I was working through my graduate work in the doctoral program, if I came across a really good article, I had a folder and I organized it the best I could in terms of what those articles were, so I could then use them later in my dissertation. So as soon as you find a study that you're like, wow, that's an awesome study, grab it, save it for later. All right. So you can see here that chapter 2 is the literature review, and I have it broken up into several different headings here. This all has to do with what I wanted to learn about. The headings came later, of course. I had to compile the literature, read the literature, summarize the literature in my own words, properly cite the literature in APA formatting, and then I was able to organize it in headings, okay? So let's go to chapter 2 so you can just take a look at that. And chapter 2, literature review. Okay, so right here, I give like a little bit of a introduction here. And then I get into all the different literature, and you can see all these studies are cited here, here, here. I mean, there's just every paragraph is going to have an APA citation. So while you are summarizing it and putting it into your own words, remember, it is not your original idea and therefore requires a citation. And so you don't want to copy and paste for sure. You don't want to do that, but you do want to take the literature, summarize it, and cite it. And so all of this is basically all the different, articles that I read, and I'm summarizing what other people did. And then what I did was I organized it in headings, and you can see here, retention and self-esteem. I scroll down a little bit more, retention and academic achievement. And so I was able to kind of organize all of that. Now, this is a very important piece of your dissertation because this is where you become an expert in the topic. You basically read everything you can on your topic or related to your topic. Then you know a lot about your topic, and then you're able to write this so that those reading your dissertation understand that you did the preliminary research necessary in order to conduct this research project, which is going to become your dissertation. So the lit review is very important, and I recommend that you do this first, all right? So this is a big task. My lit review took me about 3 months, maybe 2 to 3 months. And that was when I was really intensely doing it. You're going to find some studies that have nothing to do with your topic. You're going to find some really good studies that have to do with your topic, and they're all going to go in here. Now, you're going to leave out the ones that have nothing to do with your topic. But when you find something good, you're going to want to hold on to that, okay? And I'm going to teach you a little trick on how to generate more articles when you find a good source in a second, all right? Now, notice that it's all properly cited in APA formatting. You're going to want to make sure you do that. If you're writing a dissertation in the College of Education, you are going to be using APA formatting. Most social studies type dissertations, and the College of Education falls under that, is going to be APA formatting. If you're doing a study in literature or something like that, you'll probably use MLA, but it will be very clear from the start which style you use, because that's the style you're going to be using your entire graduate work. So APA formatting was my experience, but of course there are other disciplines that use different style guides. So just be sure that you're using the right one. And then of course, if you go down to my bibliography, you can see that every single source I used is represented in the bib. So when you are citing in your lit review, you not only have the in-text citation with the parentheses around it and the date, but you also then represent it in your reference page, okay? Now, reference pages can be a gold mine. So let's say that you too are doing a study on third grade retentions and you stumble across my dissertation, because my dissertation is out there somewhere on Proquest. And let's say you put in the key search terms. I'm going to show you where to do that in a minute. And let's say Kathleen Jasper's third grade retention dissertation pops up and you like it. You feel like the information in my study really goes along with your topic, and I have some information that you really want to use. Well, how you get more of that information is you go into my bibliography and you basically steal my bibliography. It's totally legal. I say steal, but really what you're doing is you're exploring the sources that this person used in order to write their study. So this is very, very important. You're going to want to use the researcher's bibliography in order to beef up your literature review. If you're just looking for topics in Proquest or EBSCOhost or Sage or whatever, you're not going to find everything. You're going to want to go scroll down to their reference page and grab some of those references and see if they relate. So this is a great way to get more articles for your literature review. Highly recommend stealing the researcher's bibliography. Now, when you are looking for articles, you're going to be looking in scholarly journals. This is not a blog thing. You're not looking at websites. Now, some websites you will. Like I used a lot of the National Education Statistics websites. I used some district websites and some government websites. So you will use those for some data collection, but ultimately you're probably going to use something like this. And let's hop over here. You're going to use education policy. I mean, if you're doing an education dissertation, you might be doing a different dissertation, but you're going to want to go to the actual place where they house all of these research studies. And that's typically in Sage journals, Proquest, EBSCOhost. Your own library at the university probably has a database. You most likely will get a login because you are a doctoral student where you can access all of the journals. I no longer have that access. I have to pay for that access. But normally you see this sign-in option here. If you are on the track for dissertation and you're already in a doctoral program, they're going to give you some sort of universal login so you can access all of this. Or you might be able to access everything through your university library, all right? And then I chose education policy for this demonstration today because those are the articles that I looked for. And you're going to hit this search bar and you're going to start putting in search terms. Now, this is where the bibliography of other researchers comes in because you can use some of their topics to find even more information here. So if you're just going off the top of your head for search terms, you know that that can be extremely frustrating. You know, third grade retentions, policy on third grade retentions, you know, you're going around the world trying to find it. So once you do find an article that sticks and that you're like, this is really related to my topic, again, Another way to research is to go into their bibliography and grab those articles, either by title, throw them into the search bar and they will usually come up. Sometimes you can even take the title and put it into Google and you'll be able to find a PDF of that article. So there's all kinds of ways in which you can find information. This is probably the most frustrating and laborious part of the dissertation. I don't know, I say that loosely because there are so many parts of the dissertation, but this can be very challenging because you're doing keywords, you're not finding what you need, you're finding something of what you need, but not everything. So this is where you want to spend a lot of time and think clearly about what your key search terms are, all right? And now, another thing I want to tell you about this. You could get into Proquest. This is another database where they house dissertations, studies, academic journals, things like that. And you might go in here and click this dissertation and thesis, and you might come across some poorly written, terrible dissertations. I cannot tell you how many bad dissertations I saw, all right? So you're going to want to leave the bad and take the good, all right? Don't focus on, geez, how did they get published? They did, obviously, it's okay. But sometimes a non-example is a good example. So, but leave the junk and grab what is pertinent to what you are trying to do. Now, after you have done an exhaustive literature review, you are then able to come up with your research questions a little more clearly. Sometimes in the literature review, you will have some new ideas or even another avenue you want to take. Another thing you might want to do is explore some of those studies that you really liked and look at their methods on how they did it. You can replicate those methods and use them in your own district for your own research. You're certainly not copying somebody's study. That is not what I'm saying. But if you liked the way they organized the data and sort of the methods they use, whether it was quantitative, qualitative, if they used, some sort of statistical model that you found to be very important, you might say, you know what, I want to apply that same type of analysis to my dissertation. So the lit review is not just about analyzing other people's research, it's also analyzing the methods in which they used in order to come up with their findings and things like that. So the lit review is really the heart of the study. It is what brings you more knowledge and more understanding of what you're trying to do. Don't skimp on the lit review. And if you have a really good dissertation committee, they won't let you skimp on the lit review. They will want more. And you will have to keep finding articles and things like that. And you can see here that it's all related to my topic. So I have mandatory grade retention, self-esteem, academic achievement, outcomes over time, and all of it's related to retention. And there was a ton of information out there. That's another thing in terms of your topic. You might get to the lit review and realize there's not much on your topic. Well, guess what? You may want to revise your topic a little bit. Remember, we're trying to complete this task so we can get our doctorate. We're not going to change the world by our dissertation. I really wish we were. Most people won't even read your dissertation, aside from your dissertation committee and maybe your mom, or people might read your dissertation. Plenty of people read mine because it was a little bit political and I had a lot of people interested in this topic. But you might get into the lit review and say, there is nothing out there. That means that you may want to consider revising your topic, because if you have to really work hard on finding research, it's just going to make the task more laborious and extend it out a lot longer. So I recommend, in order to, do this in a decent amount of time without dragging this thing out for years, you got to be flexible in how you approach it. And so the lit review will help you do that. Now, you might get into the lit review and see there are tons of information on your topic. So that's awesome. Keep going. But if there's not, you may want to just kind of adjust and move on. All right. So we have broken down chapter 2, which for me was basically the first chapter I worked on for my dissertation, the literature review. If you have any questions, you can throw them in the comments below and I'll be happy to answer them either online or in another video. And then stay tuned for part 3, where I will go over the research questions and introduction and things like that, so that you have a better understanding there. I will also do another video on the research methods, which can be fairly complicated if you're doing a quantitative or qualitative study. And then, of course, findings and conclusions and things like that. But remember, lit review is muy importante. Make sure you are spending enough time on this, and you do not have to wait until you are in the dissertation phase to start this. If you find something good while you are working on your regular doctoral work, throw it in a folder and save it for later. You will thank me later for that little tip. Thank you so much for watching today. Consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing, and let your colleagues know we're here. If you are working in a group or a cohort through the dissertation process, please let them know that I am doing videos on this. I want to help as many people through this process as I can. Have a great day.